December 5, 1872. The Atlantic Ocean, roughly 400 miles east of the Azores. Captain David Morehouse of the British brigantine Dei Gratia spots something strange on the horizon. A ship moving erratically, sails partially set but drifting. No response to signals. As his crew draws closer, Morehouse realizes he recognizes the vessel. It's the Mary Celeste, and he knows her captain, Benjamin Briggs. They'd had dinner together just weeks earlier in New York before both ships set sail. But something is very wrong. When Morehouse's crew boards the Mary Celeste, they find a scene that defies explanation. The ship is seaworthy, cargo intact, navigation equipment functioning. There's even food in the galley, still edible, but every single person is gone. Captain Briggs, his wife Sarah, their 2-year-old daughter Sophia. The crew of 7 experienced sailors. Vanished. No signs of struggle, no blood, no bodies. Just an empty ship, drifting across the Atlantic with no one at the helm. For over 150 years, the Mary Celeste has been called the greatest maritime mystery in history. Was it mutiny? Pirates? A sea monster? Insurance fraud? In recent years, scientists have proposed a theory so strange, so specific, that it sounds like fiction. But the evidence suggests it might actually explain what happened. This is the story of the ghost ship that shouldn't exist, and the crew that disappeared without a trace. The Mary Celeste started life in 1861 as the Amazon, built in Spencer's Island, Nova Scotia. She was a 2-masted brigantine, 103 feet long, 282 tons. Nothing special about her design, just a solid, reliable merchant vessel built for transatlantic cargo runs. But from the beginning, she seemed cursed. Her first captain, Robert McClellan, died within 48 hours of her maiden voyage. The ship was damaged in a collision. She ran aground. She caught fire while in port. Within 3 years, she'd had 4 different owners and more mishaps than most ships see in a lifetime. In 1868, she was salvaged from a wreck and sold at auction. New York shipping merchant James Winchester bought her, made extensive repairs, and renamed her Mary Celeste. He brought in a trusted captain to command her, Benjamin Briggs. By 1872, the Mary Celeste had finally found stability. She was seaworthy, profitable, and in good hands. This was supposed to be a routine voyage. It wasn't. On November 7, 1872, the Mary Celeste departed New York Harbor. Destination, Genoa, Italy. Cargo, 1,801 barrels of commercial denatured alcohol. Captain Briggs, as we mentioned, brought his wife Sarah and their 2-year-old daughter Sophia. His 7-year-old son Arthur was supposed to join them but stayed behind to attend school. Sarah wrote to her mother before departure, excited about the voyage. She described the ship as in excellent condition and the crew as capable. The crew consisted of 7 men. First mate Albert Richardson, age 28, had sailed with Briggs before. Second mate Andrew Gilling, age 25, was from New York. The brothers Volkert and Bos Lorenzen were German sailors. Arian Martins and Gottlieb Goodshall rounded out the crew. All experienced, all competent, all about to vanish. The Dei Gratia, captained by David Morehouse, left New York 8 days after the Mary Celeste. Both ships were bound for Italy with similar cargoes. Both followed standard Atlantic routes. Neither captain knew they'd cross paths. But on December 5th, roughly 400 miles east of the Azores, first mate Oliver Deveau of the Dei Gratia spotted a ship behaving strangely. To understand why the Mary Celeste mystery is so baffling, you need to understand what Deveau and his boarding party found when they boarded her, and more importantly, what they didn't find. Let's start with what was there. The ship itself was in good condition. The hull was sound. There was 3.5 feet of water in the hold, but this was not unusual. Merchant ships routinely took on water and had pumps to manage it. The Mary Celeste's pumps were intact and functional. Most of the sails were set, though some were torn or damaged, consistent with several days of unmanned drifting. The rigging was secure, the wheel was unlashed, spinning freely. But there was no structural damage that would require abandoning ship. In the cargo hold, all 1,701 barrels of commercial alcohol properly stowed. Not a single barrel had been breached. This cargo was worth thousands of dollars, completely untouched. In the crew quarters, personal belongings were still in place. Clothing, boots, pipes, tobacco. The crew's wages for the voyage, in cash, were still in the captain's cabin. If this was mutiny or piracy, why leave money behind? In the galley, dishes laid out as if someone had been preparing breakfast. Food stores were well stocked. Fresh water in casks, everything you'd need for the remaining weeks of the voyage. In Captain Briggs' cabin, his wife's melodeon, a small pump organ, was properly secured. Personal effects. Sarah's jewelry box, her sewing kit. The kinds of things you don't leave behind if you're fleeing. So what was missing? The ship's chronometer, a precision timepiece essential for navigation. Gone. The sextant, used for celestial navigation. Gone. The ship's register and most of the ship's papers. Gone. The captain's logbook was still there, but the final entry was dated November 25th, 10 days before the Dei Gratia found her. The entry was routine. Weather notes, position recorded, nothing unusual, and most critically, the ship's lifeboat. Gone. When DeVoe examined the davit, the crane mechanism that holds the lifeboat, the ropes were still attached, but they were frayed, as if they'd been violently pulled apart or cut. This suggests the lifeboat wasn't lowered carefully. It was released in a hurry. One more detail that wouldn't be discovered until later. A makeshift sounding rod was found on the deck. Someone had been measuring the water level in the hold recently. Now here's what makes this scene so strange. If you're abandoning a sinking ship, you panic. You grab what you can and flee. You don't take the chronometer and sextant. You don't gather the ship's papers. You certainly don't organize a careful evacuation into a lifeboat. But if you're not panicking, if you're making a calculated decision to leave temporarily, you do take those things. Because you plan to come back. So why didn't they? Let's talk about the people who vanished, because understanding who they were makes the mystery even stranger. Captain Benjamin Briggs was not a reckless man. Born in 1835 in Wareham, Massachusetts, he came from a seafaring family. His father, Nathan Briggs, was a ship's captain. So was his brother. Benjamin had been commanding vessels since his early 20s. He was known as competent, cautious, and deeply religious. He didn't drink alcohol. He read his Bible daily. His ships were run with discipline and order. He'd been married to Sarah for 8 years. She was no stranger to the sea. She'd accompanied Benjamin on previous voyages. She kept detailed journals of their travels. She was educated, capable, and by all accounts fearless. Their daughter Sophia was 2 years old. Their son Arthur, 7, stayed home for school, a decision that saved his life. Arthur would grow up never knowing what happened to his parents and baby sister. The crew were professionals. Albert Richardson, the first mate, had served under Briggs before on the ship Arthur. He was trusted, reliable. The kind of officer a captain depends on. Andrew Gilling, the second mate, was relatively new to the Mary Celeste, but had years of experience on Atlantic routes. The Lorenzen brothers were German immigrants who'd been working on American merchant ships for years. Arian Martins and Gottlieb Goodschall completed the crew, both experienced seamen. This was not a crew of incompetents or troublemakers. These were men who knew how to handle rough seas, equipment failures, and the normal dangers of ocean travel. So what could make experienced sailors abandon a perfectly seaworthy ship? Over the decades, theories have ranged from the plausible to the absurd. Let's work through them. This was the first theory investigators considered. Pirates board the ship, kill the crew, steal everything valuable, and flee. But it makes no sense. The cargo, 1,701 barrels of alcohol worth thousands, was untouched. The crew's wages were still on board. Sarah Briggs' jewelry was still in her cabin. If pirates took the trouble to board a ship and overpower 10 people, why leave all the valuables behind? And where's the evidence of violence? No bloodstains, no damage from weapons, no signs of struggle. Pirates aren't known for their tidiness. Additionally, the missing lifeboat suggests the crew left voluntarily. Pirates don't load their victims into a lifeboat and set them adrift with navigation equipment. Some investigators, grasping at insurance fraud theories, suggested the crew mutinied. They killed Captain Briggs, his wife and daughter, then fled in the lifeboat. But again, why leave their personal belongings? Why leave their wages? And where did they go? The North Atlantic in December is not survivable in a small lifeboat. If they murdered their captain and his family, they signed their own death warrants by getting in that boat. And there's another problem. Benjamin Briggs was well liked by his crews. There's no evidence of tension or discontent. Albert Richardson had sailed with him before and specifically requested to serve as first mate on this voyage. Mutiny requires motive. There wasn't one. This theory gained massive traction after Sir Arthur Conan Doyle published a fictionalized story about the Mary Celeste in 1884. In his version, the ship was found with blood everywhere, and the disappearance was orchestrated for insurance money. The problem? Conan Doyle made it all up. The real Mary Celeste had no blood, and the insurance fraud angle doesn't work because, 1. Benjamin Briggs was a part owner of the ship. Insurance fraud would have cost him money. 2. Captain Morehouse of the Dei Gratia didn't know the Mary Celeste would be in that area. The ships left port 8 days apart on different routes. You can't orchestrate a salvage conspiracy when you don't know where the other ship will be. 3. The salvage court in Gibraltar investigated this thoroughly and found zero evidence of coordination between Briggs and Morehouse. The insurance fraud theory is compelling in fiction. In reality, it's nonsense. Some Victorian investigators, truly out of ideas, proposed that a giant squid or octopus attacked the ship and dragged everyone overboard. This doesn't even pass the laugh test. Giant squids don't attack ships, they don't drag people off decks, and they certainly don't make people take the chronometer, sextant, and lifeboat with them. This one belongs in the same category as Aliens Did It. Entertaining, but useless. Now we get to the credible theories, the ones that actually fit the evidence. In 2007, Dr. Andrea Sella from University College London's Department of Earth Sciences conducted an experiment that changed how we understand this mystery. His theory, alcohol vapor explosion. Here's how it works. The Mary Celeste was carrying 1,701 barrels of commercial denatured alcohol. This alcohol was shipped in barrels made of oak. Most were red oak, which is porous. 9 were white oak, which is less porous. During the voyage, the ship encountered varying temperatures and rough seas. Standard Atlantic conditions in November. The alcohol in the red oak barrels began to evaporate through the pores, a process called outgassing. This created alcohol vapor in the ship's hold, and alcohol vapor is highly flammable. But here's the crucial part. Alcohol vapor doesn't always ignite immediately. It can accumulate invisibly, creating a massive potential explosion waiting for a spark. Dr. Sella built a scale model of the Mary Celeste's cargo hold. He filled it with alcohol vapor at the concentration that would have existed on the ship. Then he introduced an ignition source, something as simple as static electricity or friction from cargo shifting. What happened next is remarkable. The alcohol vapor ignited, but not the way you'd expect. It created what's called a smokeless flash fire, a sudden burst of flame and pressure that lasted only seconds. No sustained fire, no smoke, no charring. No evidence left behind, except for one thing, the pressure wave. The hatches covering the cargo hold would have blown open. A blast of flame would have erupted on deck. To anyone watching, it would look like the ship was about to explode. But within seconds, it's over. The vapor burns off, the flame disappears. No fire remains, just the blown open hatches and the smell of burnt alcohol. Now imagine you're Captain Benjamin Briggs. You're on deck. Maybe it's morning. Your wife and daughter are below. Suddenly, there's a blast. Flame shoots up from the cargo hold, the hatches blow open, heat and pressure hit you. You don't know it's a flash fire. You don't know it's already over. All you know is that you're sitting on top of 1,701 barrels of flammable alcohol and your ship just exploded. You have seconds to make a decision. Your training tells you, get away from the danger. Your cargo is explosive. Your family is on board. You can't risk the ship going up in flames. So you make the call. Abandon ship. But not permanently. Take the lifeboat. Take the chronometer and sextant so you can navigate. Take the ship's papers. Tie a rope to the Mary Celeste so you can monitor from a safe distance. If the ship explodes, you're safely away. If it doesn't, you can reboard once you're sure it's safe. This explains everything. Why they took the lifeboat and navigation equipment they intended to return. Why the cargo was intact. The flash fire didn't ignite the liquid alcohol, only the vapor. Why the hatches were open when the Dei Gratia found her. They'd been blown open by the pressure wave. Why there was no fire damage. Smokeless flash fires leave no char marks. Why they left in an organized manner. This wasn't panic, it was a calculated evacuation. But here's the tragic part. December in the North Atlantic. Rough seas. A small lifeboat tied to a merchant vessel by a rope. The rope breaks, or maybe they cut it loose because the ship started drifting too fast and dragging the lifeboat. Now they're adrift. No way to get back to the Mary Celeste. The ship, still perfectly seaworthy, drifts away on the current. The lifeboat with 10 people, 2 adults, 1 child, 7 crew, is doomed. December seas in the mid-Atlantic. Hundreds of miles from land. A small boat not designed for open ocean. They would have lasted hours, maybe a day or two. The cold would have killed them first. Hypothermia. Then the seas. They were never found. Neither was the lifeboat. The alcohol vapor theory isn't proven. But it's the only theory that fits all the evidence. Dr. Seller's experiments showed that the specific type of alcohol, the barrel construction, the temperature variations on the route, and the time frame all support this scenario. In 2020, marine forensics experts re-examined the case using modern technology. They analyzed the ship's construction, cargo manifests, and weather records from November 1872. Their conclusions supported the vapor explosion theory. But we'll never know for certain. Because the one thing that could tell us, the captain's log, ends 10 days before the ship was found. 10 days of mystery. 10 days we'll never recover. What we do know is this. When the Dei Gratia found the Mary Celeste, the ship was under partial sail, the compass was destroyed. The forward hatch and the lazarette hatch were both open. The ship's pump had been disassembled. The sounding rod was on deck, still wet. Someone had been measuring the water in the hold recently, probably trying to assess if the ship was taking on water dangerously. The galley was orderly. Breakfast was laid out but uneaten. A bottle of cough medicine was uncorked on a shelf. Someone had been sick recently, and everyone was gone. After the Dei Gratia towed the Mary Celeste to Gibraltar, a lengthy salvage hearing was held. Captain Morehouse and his crew were hoping for a substantial salvage award. The ship and cargo were worth about $46,000, a fortune in 1872. But the court was suspicious. The circumstances were too strange. There was speculation about conspiracy, fraud, and foul play. After months of hearings, Morehouse was awarded just $6,000, about 1/8 the value. Far less than he'd hoped. The Mary Celeste was returned to her owners and put back into service. But her reputation was ruined. Sailors whispered about the ghost ship. Crews were reluctant to serve on her. Every voyage seemed plagued by bad luck. She changed hands multiple times. Each owner suffered financial losses. The curse seemed real. In 1884, her final owner, a man named Gilman Parker, deliberately ran her into a reef off Haiti in a desperate insurance fraud scheme. The plan was transparent and poorly executed. Parker was caught, prosecuted, and ruined financially. He died in poverty 3 months later, swearing until the end that the Mary Celeste was cursed. The ship herself rotted on that reef off Haiti, the ghost ship's final resting place, forgotten by everyone except historians and mystery enthusiasts. But the legend lived on. Here's what makes the Mary Celeste endure as one of history's greatest mysteries. It's not about what we found, it's about what we didn't find. No bodies, no wreckage of the lifeboat, no survivors, no witnesses, no definitive answer. We have a theory that fits the evidence, but it's still just a theory. We'll never know what Captain Benjamin Briggs saw that morning. We'll never know what he was thinking when he made the decision to abandon his ship. We'll never know if he watched from the lifeboat as the Mary Celeste drifted away, realizing too late that it wasn't going to explode. Did he try desperately to row back to it? Did the rope snap in a storm, or did he cut it himself? Did he die knowing he'd made a terrible mistake? Or did he die still believing he'd saved his family from an explosion that never came? These questions have no answers. What we're left with is a ghost ship, a vessel found intact, Crew vanished, no explanation that satisfies every question. In 2001, author Brian Hicks wrote a book about the Mary Celeste. His conclusion was simple: the truth will never satisfy the way the mystery does. And maybe that's the real lesson here. Sometimes the universe doesn't give us closure. Sometimes experienced, intelligent people make decisions that seem rational in the moment but lead to tragedy. Sometimes ships drift across the ocean with no one aboard, and we're left to wonder. The Mary Celeste wasn't a supernatural event. It wasn't aliens or sea monsters or curses. It was likely a series of very human decisions made in a moment of crisis, based on incomplete information that ended in disaster. A flash fire that looked like an explosion. A captain who made the safest call he could with the information he had. A rope that broke, a sea that swallowed 10 people whole. But even knowing that doesn't make it less haunting, because somewhere in the Atlantic, there's a small lifeboat. And 10 people who never made it home. The Mary Celeste mystery has inspired countless books, films, and documentaries. Even True Detective's 4th season drew inspiration from it, using the ghost ship imagery as a metaphor for the unknowable. Why does it endure? Because it's a reminder that even in an age of GPS, satellite phones, and instant communication, the ocean is still vast, still dangerous, still capable of swallowing people whole and leaving nothing but questions. And because it asks a question we all fear. What if you make the right decision with the information you have, and it kills you anyway? Captain Briggs did everything right. He was cautious, he was experienced. When he saw what looked like an explosion, he evacuated his ship. He took the necessary equipment, he tried to stay close so he could return. And it killed him, his wife, his daughter, his entire crew. That's the haunting truth of the Mary Celeste. It's not a mystery of malice, it's a mystery of fate. The next time you're on a boat and you look out at the horizon, remember, somewhere out there was a ship, perfectly seaworthy, cargo intact, food on the table, no one aboard, and no one knows why. If you want to dive deeper into the Mary Celeste mystery, check the description for links to the 2007 University College London study, original salvage court documents, and historical shipping records. Thanks for listening to Distilled. If this story gave you chills, subscribe for more mysteries that refuse to be solved. Until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, and maybe don't transport highly flammable cargo in wooden ships.